Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me for my first YouTube video. Today I wanted to use this gorgeous Brutus Monroe Succulent background, but I wanted to find a way on my Brother Scan and Cut to cut out this image and also be able to cut out the center so I could put something else there in the center. So I have a video showing how you can do that on your Brother Scan and Cut, and this is the result we have. So we have this center cut out, so we can color this in, mount it on something, and maybe put a sentiment there in the middle. But if you guys want to keep watching, I'll show you how. Okay, so we are going to start with this stamp and take it off the backing sheet, and we're going to use our MISTI and put the wrong side down onto the paper. So we won't be stamping the detailed part of it, we'll be stamping the back of it. And you want to make sure and try to get as much covered as possible, especially the edges. And then I use my Brutus Monroe Squeaky Clean Sweet Pumpkin Spice Cleaner to clean off my stamp. Oh my goodness, does this stuff smell amazing. So the next thing you want to do is take a black marker and go around all the edges on the outside and the inner part, because you want to make sure that the black lines all connect to each other, or the Scan and Cut will think those are all separate pieces that need cut. Once you have your stamped image loaded onto your mat and in your machine, you're going to need to go to Scan and then Scan to Cut Data. Once you have everything in there, you can go ahead and scan in your piece by pressing the Start and Stop button. I don't currently have anything in there, but I wanted to show you the buttons you needed to use to get to that part. Okay guys, so I have everything scanned in already, and I wanted to show you some of the mistakes I did along the way and what I did to take care of them. So first we're going to go into our machine and to save data. And the first scan I did, if you can see, it has all those little black marks in the middle. That was before I filled in the inner part of the stamp with a black marker to cover up all those little white areas. So it picked up all the white areas as areas that it thought I wanted to cut. So I knew that wouldn't work. So I went ahead and deleted that. So the next thing I did after I filled in everything with a black marker was scanned it in. And it took care of all that stuff in the middle, but you can see along the edges here that I don't have a very nice straight line, and there's a couple of stray marks here. So what I did to fix that was I went ahead and selected this, grouped everything together here, and just moved this out of the way so I had a nice area here. Because what I'm going to do now is add in a shape that's already in my machine, and I wanted to go with the rounded edge square, and I want to make sure that my image kind of goes off the end of the piece of paper when I stamp it. So it measures about 5 1/4 inches, a little bit bigger. So I just made this square 5 1/4 inches, and then it puts it there for me. So the next thing I need to do is move this over here to replace that other square. And I did have to use these little arrows here to get it right where I wanted. I wanted it to exactly cover up that first square that I did to make sure that the middle part was in the center. So the next thing we need to do is get rid of the kind of wonky square that we made. So we're going to go move these arrows around, and there's a little part there we don't want, so I'm going to delete that. I think this is the big wonky square. We're going to delete that. Yep. And then delete all these other little pieces until we're left with just the middle and the rounded edge square. So that's what we're left with. So I did go ahead and save that onto my machine. Now the next thing we need to do is reverse it, because this scanned the wrong side of the stamp. So if we cut this out, we could just flip the paper over and be fine, but I like to cut the right side of the paper. So what we need to do now is go in there to select, and then we're going to go over there, and this little button right here lets you flip the image around. So we're going to flip that, and now that's going to give us the proper way when we cut this. We'll be able to line up the stamp perfectly. So you can just go ahead and save that, whether you want to save it to your machine or your computer. And then we have it in there when we want to cut. So we'll look at this file name, 22 is the end of it, so we know that's what we want. So then when we want to cut it out, we're going to go into Pattern, Save Data. I put it on my machine, and we're just going to go down and find 22. So that right there is the image that we want to cut out. What you can actually do is when you put your paper on your mat that you want to cut on, you're going to go to this little button here, and it actually scans in the paper you have there. So I did already cut this, but I do want to show you how you want to do this. So you're going to put your paper on your mat. You're going to, we're going to load our mat. And then you're going to go ahead and press start, and that's going to scan your paper on the mat so you know where you need to cut. So this shows me where my paper is, and what we can do is go over here, make sure we group everything so it moves together, and we can just move it onto our mat. You can see these little purple pieces of tape are just tape that I use to make sure my paper stays on my mat because it kind of has lost its stickiness. So I know right now that my image is on my paper, and then we can just go ahead and hit OK, OK, and then cut, and then hit start and stop to cut our image out. Okay, so now we have our cutout piece of paper, and I did cut this out on Strathmore watercolor paper because I will be coloring this with the Brutus Monroe aqua pigments. And I also embossed it using their Raven embossing powder. And I think it helps when you emboss images that you plan on watercoloring because those raised lines on the image help to keep the color where you want it to be. So we need to line up our stamp onto this paper using the right side of the stamp that was originally intended to stamp, so we get those beautiful lines of the succulents. And I first used the magic powder bag to reduce any static, and then used the Brutus Monroe embossing ink and then the Raven embossing powder. And this is the image that we have after we emboss it. And I love how we have this cutout part in the center because we can add a sentiment or something else in there, pop something up. I think it leaves, the possibilities open to a lot of things to use this stamp. And it may seem like this, took a lot of effort to make this cut file, but we can save it now and use it anytime we want to use this stamp. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed my first ever YouTube video. Please stay tuned because I do plan on making a video of me coloring this image with the Brutus Monroe aqua pigments. Thanks, and have a great day.